Okay, we're going to do this as a video because one student is traveling. One student texted and said that they are unable to Zoom, and I don't know where the other student is. So let me share screen. Today we're going to go over sort of where you need to be with non-chord tones, and then what are we doing with our 5/7 chords. We're essentially wrapping up all three of these chapters. And then next week you'll get testing on them, sort of traditional, writing down stuff kind of testing. So this is a PDF that's available in your, should I say, in your folder for Music 133. And it's the first half of a song called All Creatures of Our God and King. And what we're going to do is, what we're going to do for this class is we're going to go through this, and I'm going to do an analysis with you, and then you would, be able to see where you're at. By now, you should have had all the non-chord tones memorized, and yeah. So let's see if we can type in here. I think, in fact, we'll pull this over like this right there. So all creatures of our God and King is the one chord right here. Okay. Is all creatures of our God and King. It's a very famous hymn. It's used by written by Vaughan Williams, and it's got lots of great non-chord tones in here. So you should have your non-chord tone definitions memorized now, and you have some testing on that, and you've got your flashcards, and you knew that. So I'm going to go through here and do an analysis and point out non-chord tones as we go along. I'm not going to mess too much with annotation tools here, maybe a little bit, but mostly just pay attention because I'll be pointing to places on the screen. So here we're in the key of E flat, and this is a one chord. And this whole section right here for the first 1 and 2 beats, because we're in 3/2 time, so the half note is getting a beat, is a one chord. So E flat, G, E flat, E flat. There's no fifth, but that's just because they wanted to keep everything in the right range here. And then here we have 2 passing tones going up like that. So there's my passing tone entered by step, and then left by step in the same direction, and another one in the tenor right there. And I want to point out that when you have more than one non-chord tone at the same time, almost invariably, like there are some exceptions, but almost invariably you'll find that the non-chord tones harmonize with each other. So F and A flat are a third apart and could be part of a chord, right? In fact, if you look at this F, A flat, and E flat, if there were a C there, you'd go like, this is a 2 chord, and that's a pedal tone underneath. Which is it? Well, it's whichever is easier. And I think just calling these passing tones is easier than saying this is a pedal point. Okay. Here we have the last instance of the E flat chord, E flat, G, E flat again. And this is a passing tone right there, right? Passing tone down to the 6th chord right here, C, C, E flat, G. So no non-chord tones here, but we've got double passing tones, passing tone, 6th chord right here. And then here is my F, A flat, C, E flat. So this is a 2, right, with a 7th right there. Okay. Okay. And then we get to here, and it's our 5 chord. At least it will be when we resolve down. So here we go B flat, D, and B flat. No F, it's incomplete. Okay, but we've seen incomplete 5 chords before. That's not a big deal. This E flat is a non-chord tone, and here I will annotate, I think, with a text box. That is a text box. It's not a text box. Here we go, right here. When you find a suspension, which is what this is, see if I put this right here, like that. It's important to not only recognize it's a suspension right here, entered by same note, resolved by step down, but as we mentioned in Wednesday's update videos, you have to annotate the distance of the suspension. So the E flat to the B flat, and you just condense it, usually, make it less than a 1/10. So E flat down to B flat is 4. And then when we get all the way over to here, when it resolves, the D which is the chord tone. So it resolves down, steps down, and we still have a B flat in the bass or the lowest note right there. This is a 4/3 suspension, right? So don't forget you have to, yeah, the annotation tools are kind of funky because of the way this is. Right? You have to say, what's my interval between the suspension and the bass note, and then the resolution of the suspension in the bass note. Now, here we have A flat. Is this the seventh of a 5 chord, B flat, D, F, A flat, or is it a passing tone? The answer is yes. That's partly how sevenths came about. So if we're looking at the textbook, they'd say it's a seventh introduced like a passing tone, right? And if they approach to the seventh, that thing we talked about the other day in the Wednesday videos, or you could just say it's a passing tone, okay? Here's a 1/6 right here. This is a G, B flat, and E flat, E flat. So there's my 1 chord right there. And that makes sense because the seventh coming down, resolving to the third is right there. Now, here's a question for you to just puzzle on for a minute. Is this a new chord right here? Or are they just neighbor tones? Neighbor tone would be up by step, down by step, up by step, down by step. And so the answer is, yeah, it's a pair of neighbor tones. Is it another chord? Yes, it is, because A flat, C, E flat is a 4 chord in this key. It could be 1, 6, 4, 1 if you want to. It depends on how you take a look at non-chord tones versus changes in chords. Generally speaking, music likes to have a regular rate of change of chords. In other words, we have like we think of it as a beat and a beat and a beat and a beat, right? So maybe it's okay to have chord, 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 and you can call this a 4 chord right there, A flat, C, E flat. Or you can say, well, the pickup for the first line didn't have anything. So this is all just E flat again, and these are just neighbor tones. And I think the answer is yes, which I'm not trying to be facetious, to be problematic about that. But Vaughan Williams is playing 2 kind of games right here. One is he recognizes that this is the beginning of bum, 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 bum. Let's do it again. Bum, 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 bum. So he owes the fact that this is a complete 1 chord right there, and he labels it like that. But then he says, well, it'd be nice if we could do something slightly different the second time. So there's interest there for you. There's value for that. And in this case, then he puts it in first inversion, sticks these neighbor tone chords here or neighbor tone notes here, right? Well, again, they make a nice another other chord. And 4 chords are allowed to follow 1s and go back to 1s. And so he's having it both ways. It feels like the 1 chord with some ornamentation, but he's also putting in the notes to make a 4 chord right there. Okay. Here's a 1/6 right here, E flat, G, B flat, and B flat. Okay. Here is, well, let's take a look at it. D, F, F, A flat. So I guess it's a D diminished chord, 7, right? And that'd be in first inversion. Okay. And then E flat chord again. So 1/6, 7 diminished 6, and then 1. Or are they just passing notes and things? Because this could be a passing note. That could be the tenor line, could be a neighbor tone. The alto line could be an appoggiatura, and the top line could be a passing note as well. And the answer is yes, again, although there's so much of it here, and this happens so often to put between a 1 and a 1/6, a 7 chord or a 5 chord passing through, that we would probably label this just 7 diminished 6, and maybe even put a bracket and say this is like a passing chord because it's made of passing tones and things like that. It doesn't matter either way, okay? And then here, E flat, well, is this a chord on its own? Because we have 1, right? 6, 7 diminished 6 right here, 1 again. And then is this just a 1 chord with a passing tone? My inclination is to say yes. I don't think this is anything different. I think this D flat is coming down from this E flat right there. So just a passing tone right there. Here's my 6 chord again, which kind of matches up to right there. Here's my 2 chord with the 7th, which matches up to right there. We have the exact same idiom here as we had here, which is a suspension and a resolution. And this is a fourth from here to here. We got to measure that number when we find a suspension, and then a 3 right there. And there's my 7 or passing tone. And now we have an ending here. So hallelujah, hallelujah, like that. And that's before we go on to the rest of the piece. So this is a 1/6 chord right here, E flat, G, B flat, B flat, right? This here, I think it's still a 1/6 chord, right? I think this is just your E flat and your G and your B flat. And this top note right here is a passing tone right there, okay? Here, we have a 4 chord, right? A flat, C, E flat. This B flat here is a suspension right there, held out, held down, right? We have to measure from here down to there then, and that is a 9th, right? So let's grab this guy right here, throw this right here, type in 9, and when it resolves, it's an octave right there. So 9/8 suspension. Okay, here's my 1 chord again, right? So when, you know, to a 4 chord and a 1, this 1 going to a 4 chord to a 1 is giving more credence to me that this is a 1 and a 4 and a 1. We just hear them in the same way, right? This is my C minor chord, so there's my 6th chord. This is a B flat chord right here, B flat, D, D, F. So I have a 5 chord in first inversion, so 6, 5, 6, going to a, well, depends. Is this a 1 chord? It's tough to say because although we've got the E flat and the B flat, and this looks like a typical suspension that we've been doing right here, the C is right there. I think that's actually pretty important. I think what's happening here, I'll just tell you what's happening. We're ending on a 5 chord right here, B flat, D, B flat, okay? This chord right here has an A natural in it, so it's F, A, C, E flat. So we've modified our 2 chord, turned it into a dominant chord, F, A, C is major, E flat, and that's the 5 of this. And so the way that we label this, grab this here, is we would label this a 5, 7 of 5. And then get ourselves a 5 right there. Temporarily, it doesn't change key per se, but it does sort of dip into the key of B flat for a minute. Now, knowing this right here, this looks to me like a 2 chord in this key. If I'm in the key of B flat right here, then F7 right there is the 5 of that. And here is, I think what it is it's a C, E flat, G, it's missing because it's got, instead it's got a suspension, and then a B flat there. This is like a 2 with a 7th in first inversion, 2, 5, 1 in the key of 5, right? It's kind of funny because that makes this be 4/3 suspension, but we'll go one further here. I guess I'll type this out and then we'll be done with this. Then we'll go to writing some non-chord tones, or sorry, some 5/7 chords right here. So I'm going to start with, let's just take this and build it backwards. That this right here is a 2 chord with a 7th on it. All right, I'm going to straighten this out. So what do we have here? This chord here is a 2 with a 7th in inversion of 5. This next note here is the 5, 7 of the 5, and then 5 right there. So this is my suspension right here. So that's fine. So we did the analysis. The suspension here is a 9 because F is a 9th above the E flat, right? But watch what happened here. When it resolved down, the bass note also changed. right? And we talked about this in Wednesday's videos. Since the bass note changed, it's 9 here, but it's not 9/8 because this came up as well. It's 9/7. Okay. And that's kind of interesting and different, right? This is a ninth right here from suspension to bass. And then when it resolves down, the bass stepped up. And so it's not a 9/8, but a 9/7 right there. All right. That's our demonstration right there. You're going to need to be able to do stuff like this. And starting this weekend and through Monday and into next week up to the test, I'm going to give you daily little ones of these things to do. So later today, look online and you'll see exercises like this. And they'll be graduated for different levels of assistance. Okay. Right. You should know your definitions, should be able to recognize them, should be able to introduce them, and you should be able to identify them in a texture like this. The third step is writing them. Our fourth step is writing them. Before we jump into 5/7 chords, and this will be a topic that we'll deal with on Monday, but in your textbook on page 179, right there, right, there is a section called how to embellish a simple texture. That means when you have just chords like we've been writing, how do you add non-chord tones, right? All right, so very carefully is the answer. But I want to show you what they want you to be careful of. We've already talked about it should sound right. When you have multiple non-chord tones stacked on top of each other, they should sound like they harmonize with each other. Sometimes they make entirely different chords. There's one other thing just to be very, very careful of here. So here's a simple chord progression that they have. It's like a 1/6 going to a 4/6 going to a 5 going to a 1. Okay. And they say, that's great. Let's embellish this texture with non-chord tones. Let's put a neighbor tone right there. Let's put a passing tone right there, right? So neighbor tone, passing tone. We can do a little appoggiatura into there. But when you do that, you have to take care to make sure you're not making other problems. So when you put the neighbor tone right here, it steps up to the D. When they go down to their next notes, now you've got D going down to C and G going down to F. And that is a perfect fifth. So you have parallel perfect fifths. You're a great idea for your non-chord tone, not yours, but the textbook in this case has created non-chord, parallel perfect fifths, which are no. So we have to check that whenever we write. Here, this passing tone right here, right? The E going to the D now makes a fifth with the A that was there. Used to be a 6 and that was fine. When it drops down, and that's another parallel fifth right there. So that's something you have to watch out for. Here, this jump up to the B and going into the C now gives us an octave with the B and then parallel octaves right there. So as we do this, we have to install one more step as we write these things. We have to make sure that when we write our non-chord tones, we haven't created part writing errors or having parallel fifths, parallel octaves, hidden direct fifths octaves, and even unequal fifths or octaves. All right, so that's coming up, right? That's be our focus from here on out for a couple days until we test next week. All right, I'm just going to take one more time to go over this. I'm not going to give you any new information because this was in the videos for Wednesday, but it bears going over this again. So if you're going to do this fully, grab a piece of staff paper and write this out and then do it along with me. Pause the video, right? And come back. All right. So we're going to a 5/4/3 and then to a 1/6 and a 5/4/3 and then a 1/6. 5/4/3 is, in this case, it's going to be a B chord, B, D sharp, F sharp, and A, right? And my pen is dying. Guess I'm going back to blue. Okay. Wanted it to kind of be different. How about purple? Let's do purple. Maybe. We'll see if we can do purple. Pen is also stuck and broken. It's time to get new pens in this house. All right. So we have spent a lot of time talking about how to resolve them, but we haven't talked about how to get into them. So let's just think about this. Let's just take this and see if we can make it work by smooth writing and what makes logical sense. And then we'll check for, parallel octaves, parallel fifths, those kind of things. So first off, 4/3 means that the fifth is in the bass. So that's my bass note right there. Okay, got that taken care of. Let's take a look at these other notes. Can we do common tone? Well, that would be like right there, right? So if you think about this, this is like writing 5 to 1, but in the opposite direction. Queen steps down, drunk uncle holds over, right? We're just doing it backwards now, okay? And then we have to get a D sharp and an A flat. And I think the best thing is just to go smoothly. D sharp right there. This is T going to Do, except we're going backwards, okay? Princess marrying up, and this is the G in the chord. So we're going to go up to the A right there, and this is the prince stepping down. So looks pretty good. All right. Now, in your textbook, and we mentioned this in the last class, the Wednesday video, there is a situation when you resolve this chord that they don't all play their parts. And this is where the queen steps up instead of stepping down. Because in this case, the bass line, melodic bass line here, do, re, mi, is requiring the queen to go up because 1/6, so third is in the bass. So it broke the formula for us right there. When that happens, you can just make everybody else do exactly what they do normally. You'll get some funny doubling up here, but it will be fine. So the drunk uncle person does nothing, holds over, right? Evil king's brother. Princess steps up like that. And we already have our E, G sharp, and B right there. Now, here's where it gets interesting. This could just do what it's going to do and go there. That would be fine, right? And this is where you get your funny doubling. However, we learned that in the case where the queen is stepping up like this, then the prince has the option of going up as well. In other words, not doing what he normally does, right? They both have interesting sounds. I think they're fine. Let's go up for right now, like that, okay? All right, let's go back down now, right? So 1/6 going to a 5/4/3, we got to go back to the F sharp right there, right? The tenor line will do nothing because it's the uncle, right? Do will go to T, right? So I'm thinking through my resolution backwards, just like I did right here when I'm getting into it, right? All right, and then here, well, it's another B, so we have to make a choice here. This is sort of like, why we would think about this. Because this is not set up standard and we have two B's, which are the uncles, we're not going to hold them both over, because then we get a D sharp, right? And a B and a B and a D sharp and an F sharp, which means we don't have a seventh, right? Somebody's got to take the seventh. This was the one that went up to the seventh. We'll bring it back down like that. You could have switched those, by the way, and brought this one down to the A flat and left it on the B. It doesn't matter, but one of those is going to have to go to the A flat. Otherwise, you don't have a seventh chord, you have a triad, okay? Now, when we resolve this, we just do things as per the way we're supposed to do this. The queen steps down like she's supposed to do normally, right? The uncle holds over, princess resolves strictly, and the prince also resolves strictly, straight down like that, okay? So the takeaway from this, two things. First one, when you're writing into the 5 chord, try and think backwards from a formula. Like if this was a 4 chord going to a 5 chord, you'd say, well, what would normally happen? And try and mimic that. If we're going from a 1 chord into a 5 chord, well, think about your resolution of your 5 chord tones and then track them backwards into there, okay? Remember, there's an exception to the rule. The queen can step up when the bass line demands it. When that happens, the prince can also step up if you want, or it could have gone to there, and that would have been fine as well, okay? And if you're coming out of a chord that has multiple, doubles, like in this case of the B, which is going to end up being the uncle character right there, then one of them is going to have to move and pick up the seventh. Otherwise, we don't have a seventh chord, okay? All right, cool. Well, that's your virtual class for today. It's not as interactive, of course, as we'd like. Your job is to watch this, to make sure that you are finishing up any studying that you need to, so that you can Say, I know my non-chord tones. I know how to identify the parts of the 5/7 chord and how to resolve them each properly. Try and remember this one exception to the rule right here with the queen stepping up and the prince possibly stepping up. And then be on the lookout on Canvas for little tiny exercises constantly from now till next week so that you can practice and get good at these. All right, that's it.